Well, hello and welcome to a live on YouTube Friday. Call it Video Makers Q&A and Hangouts. I am so glad you are here. My name is Kevin Kolbe with Kevin Kolbe Media, and if we haven't met, well, that's who I am. I do this thing live every Friday on my YouTube channel. Started a few weeks ago, and I really enjoy it. So at any point, if you're watching this live or on the replay later, drop a comment, especially if you're live, drop a comment in and say hey. And also, if you have any questions about anything we're talking about, my goal with this every Friday is just to dive into video and video marketing related things to help you make video so you can make an impact in the world, kind of like my sign back there says. So today we're going to dive into, and by the way, if you're ever interested in how I live stream my show on Fridays, I use Ecamm Live. Phenomenal program. It is a Mac only program, but that might be a reason right there to get a Mac. I'm just saying. Hang on, gotta hydrate. But I am a video creator and coach. I love helping people like you create video and make video. Video's been what was the thing that Billy Crystal used to do? Saturday Night Live, wasn't it Billy Crystal? Baseball been belly good to me. Well, video's been belly good to me. I've been in the world of video media for a long time. Got in radio and then was in television and have run my own business now for a few years. Working with clients, and then just I love teaching video. I love coaching about video. I love sharing things about video because there is no better way to share your message. But as I was saying, sorry, I got sidetracked, is that I use a program called Ecamm Live on my Friday show to broadcast live on YouTube. It is phenomenal. It's a Mac only, but in the well, the description of this video, I put a link. If you want to try it, you get a 14-day trial. I'd strongly recommend it. Another program I use is StreamYard, but I use that for different reasons. But for right now, going live is Ecamm. Highly recommend. But today, as the title suggested, I want to answer the question that I get asked a lot, and it's this question. What's the best camera for creating videos? I can't tell you how many times I have been asked this. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this question pop up, and I think it's an okay question, but I think it's rooted out of people thinking that there's one camera, and if I just get that one camera, I'll have what I need to make video. So, and if you feel that way, and if you believe there is a best camera, let me know that in the comments. Let me know what camera you think is the best, or the camera you use. Either one, just drop that in the comments. But this morning, I'm going to show you the cameras I have and explain what I use and why. And then I'll answer that question, how about at the end? How about, let's say I was going to answer it at the beginning, because there is an answer. There is an answer to this question. What's the best camera for creating video? I'll give you a hint. It's not the camera you think it is. Shaka. So here's what I want to do though, is if you've ever had that question or you've asked that question, I don't want you to feel bad about it, because I think it's a legit question that people have. You know, they want to know what is the best mic and what is the best software. Like, for example, I started this talking about Ecamm Live. I think Ecamm Live is the best live streaming software, especially for a Mac. Now, I've heard of vMix. I've never used it. I've heard of other programs. StreamYard is very good. And right now I use it to do more of my interviews. And let me get a plug-in on this. So this week I have interviewed 4 folks for a new segment that I'll be introducing on my YouTube channel starting next Wednesday, and I don't even know what the date of that is, but starting on Wednesdays, I'll be doing a segment called "This Week Was the Best Day Ever." Excuse me. Just so you know, this is live and real. I just had a little burp. Hey, life happens, right? But anyway, I'm introducing a new segment called "This Week Was the Best Day Ever." And so every Wednesday on my YouTube channel, I'll have an interview with somebody else who's really a leader in video, who's just somebody I look up to, I love, I follow, that I think has a lot of information. So like this week, I interviewed Scott Ayers, who's a scientist at Agora Pulse. Ron I always say Rob Balasabas. Sorry, Rob. With TubeBuddy, Owen Video, and Diana Gladney with Entree Woman TV, and I've got several more lined up. And thank you. It is the 13th, Wednesday the 13th. I'm bad at math and dates. So yeah, starting that week, next Wednesday the 13th. Thank you. I will be rolling out these interviews, and I'm telling you, I'm learning stuff, and it's phenomenal. So, but that's why I was using StreamYard, because StreamYard works to bring in the interviews. But for this, Ecamm Live, and it works with Stream Deck and things like that. So, getting back to one of the things I want to talk about today is the question I get a lot: is what is the best camera for creating videos? So, let me show you the cameras I have, and I'm going to explain to you why. So let's jump into that. So this is well, it's not working right now. So here's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to share my screen. And so I don't know if you're familiar with Kit. If you are and you use Kit, let me know in the comments and put a link to your Kit. That's fine. So Kit is a phenomenal website that allows you to build kits of all different things. And oops, that's not what I want to do. Sorry. Always have to get on the right window. So as you can see here, Kit will allow you to, like a lot of my kits, I'll show you several, Kit is also free. You can sign up. It's kit.co. They used to have kit.com, but there's a whole sad story about why they don't have that anymore. But you can add a cover picture, you can add your info, you can add links. So there's links to my social media channels. Now you're looking at my dashboard, so it says why it says edit profiles. But you can have kits on here. And by the way, it's not just about gear either. There's people that have books on here, gardening. So if like, say, for example, Taz is on here and she wants to talk about her photography stuff, Taz could have different kits, and you can do different things with different. So, for example, I have one on cameras, mics and gears, lenses, and I'm going to show you how this works, lights, tripods. But this isn't about kit. This is about camera. So, when I click here, these are the cameras I have. So, like right now, I'm using my Canon M50 to live stream with, and the reason I like it is the best camera of all the cameras I have. Don't just stay with me here. It's the best camera of the ones I have. It is a mirrorless camera. Somebody called me out on it once because I've always had DSLRs, and I was calling it that, and they were like, "It's not a DSLR," and it's like, you're absolutely right. It's mirrorless, and it has to do with the way the lenses. I mean the light goes through and inside, and there's no mirror reflecting it. That's why they call it a mirrorless. It's like a sensor inside. I actually have two of these. I have a white one and a black one. I call them Salt and Pepper. And the reason I have two of these is because if I'm ever doing a two-camera shoot and I want them to be exactly the same, I can set them exactly the same. And then when I bring them into my editing software, I use Final Cut Pro 10, then I can have everything. It's just easier for me. Great camera. I also, and by the way, that's what I'm using right now to live stream. It's another reason I like Ecamm is because I can use a USB cable, the cord, plugged right into my computer. I'm not going through a capture card or anything. The only other thing I have hooked up to my camera is a power supply. I also have this camera, which is a Canon PowerShot G7X Mark III. I had the Mark II once, and which was a great camera, but the problem with the Mark II, it didn't have an external mic port, and this one does. It's right over. I have to look at I have it set up over here. It's right over here. Typically, when I'm on StreamYard, I use this camera. I also have a GoPro Hero 7 Black. Now, this is my second GoPro. I had a GoPro Hero 5. I used it a little. I went and bought this one. And then let me kind of run through these, and I'll share with you. I have an iPhone 8 Plus. Now, you may say, well, Kevin, that's not a camera. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I've shot client stuff with it. I've shot fun stuff with it. And I also have a webcam. This is one of the earlier ones. And if you want to see some videos about some of this, like I did a video, and I'll drop the link in the description. I'll try and put a card up. But it's a way you can make your webcam look better with lighting. And also mentioned Final Cut. There's a way now you can get Final Cut free for a limited time, and it's amazing. So what I'm getting at is, when we go back to when we go back to cameras, what is the best camera? And the reason I wanted to show you, well, I tell you what, let's just go back to that. The reason I wanted to show you the cameras I have is because I have different cameras for different reasons. Do you need all these cameras? No. Is this camera the best or this the best? Every one of these have advantages. So, for example, I mentioned this. The reason I love the M50, and I'm not like a lot of folks out there. And by the way, in the comments, drop the camera you have and you use. I'd be interested to see what you use and why. Tell me why. I mean, there's folks out there that love Sonys. There's folks out there that love Panasonic. I am a Canon fan. My very first camera, which was a film camera, was a Canon AE-1. And unfortunately, I sold it on eBay. I'm trying to buy it back. True story. I'm actually trying to buy it back from the guy. A guy in California bought it for his daughter who was in film school, and now I'm like, man, I really wish I hadn't sold that. My dad, he can't shoot anymore because he's got macular degeneration. He has a Nikon, an old Nikon camera. It's not old. Well, old probably for us, but heavy camera, but it's a beautiful camera. But I've had a Canon SL2, which is a really good camera. It's a lot less expensive than some of these. I had a Canon 60D. I had a Canon 70D. And then I finally got the M50. And now there's a Canon EOS, is it R? That's even a step above the M50, but it's like $1,400. The M50 is a phenomenal camera. The reason I like the M50 over the PowerShot is because of lenses. Like right now, I'm shooting this. I'm going live with my Canon M50 using a 16 millimeter lens. Believe it or not, that's a Sigma lens. It's the only non-Canon lens I have. But when I bought this one, in fact, here we can do this. When you go here, it came with this kit lens right here, and this is a 15 to 45 millimeter kit lens. And, here's the thing. There's a lot of folks that will tell you that kit lenses aren't any good and stuff like that. But you know what? If you can buy a camera and it comes with a kit lens and it doesn't cost you any more, get it. So when I bought my second M50, I bought the body only because I have a bunch of lenses. And therefore, it was actually less... It was cheaper. I'll just put it that way. It was cheaper to buy the camera body only. So think about that. If you can get a camera and you get a good deal, like something like this, believe it or not, right now the M50 cost less than the PowerShot. So it's a small camera, but this, and by the way, they both do 4K. Everything I have does 4K. My phone does 4K. The GoPro does 4K. The webcam does not. But what I like about the PowerShot over the M50 is the PowerShot has what's called a clean HDMI out. So what that means is, like the M50 does not. Now Canon just released something, and I did a video on that that you can check in the cards or the description about a way now. Canon has released this is these utilities beta. It's only for PC. Ugh. As a Mac person, that killed me, but it's only for PC, that allows you to use your Canon camera. There's a bunch of Canon cameras, and it keeps growing, including the M50 on a PC with a USB cable. That means you don't need a capture card and stuff like that. And if you don't know about what that means, don't worry about it. It's just an easier way to live stream, or actually use your Canon camera as a webcam. Even if you don't want to get into live streaming, you can use it as a webcam, which is really cool. But without that cable, without going through something like I'm doing now with Ecamm, if it doesn't have a clean HDMI out, you know, when you turn your camera on, you get all the information on the screen, and even if you can turn it off, when it feeds the camera through the source, you'll see all that unless it has what's called a clean HDMI out, or a clean feed out, whatever you want to call it. Well, the Canon G7X Mark III has a clean HDMI out. That's really cool. It's also a small, compact camera. So if I wanted to throw it in my backpack, or take it with me, and I didn't want to fool with all of this, I could. Now, you can't change lenses. So the lens that comes with this is the lens you have. It's still a great camera, though. GoPro. So I don't use my GoPro that much. What I've done with it is a couple of cool things, I think. So my youngest son, I refer to as our little dude, has special needs, and so before, even with the 5 and the 7, what I've done is I've hooked up the GoPro to his wheelchair to show like his perspective of something if we were doing Special Olympics or something like that. What's nice about the GoPro, it is very small. I think it's very hard to see sometimes because the screen actually doesn't have there's a kit you can get now to mod it out to have a flip up screen, but it's crazy price. This GoPro's waterproof, which is really nice, and then you can hook a mic up to it so you could vlog with it. So if like you wanted to get into vlogging, any of these cameras would be fine. The webcam, so basically the reason I have a webcam is because the FaceTime camera is not great. Now, there is another video I did this week about the free apps you have on a Mac that you can produce video with, and I would encourage you to watch that, because I talk about the FaceTime camera. You know, the FaceTime camera is okay, but if that's what you've got, that's what you've got. But I use this webcam. Now, the problem is right now you can't get webcams because more and more people are starting to get into video and needing them for working at home. You just can't get them, and if you can, they've jacked up the prices, and just don't pay that. And then I've got my iPhone. And that's what I use. So the reason I'm sharing all that, let me close that out. The reason I'm sharing all that is to show you not, oh, look at Kevin, he's got all these cameras. No. That's not the point. But it goes back to the question that you get asked is, what's the best camera for creating video? So I'm going to give you the answer, but I think there's some things that you need to consider, like this. So I think these are better questions, quite honestly, that you should ask. Like, what type of video will you be shooting? So again, if you think about, the video that you might be shooting, that should determine what camera. So rather than say what is the best camera, it's like, what is the camera that I need to do what I need to be doing? So what type of video are you shooting? So for example, if you are only going to be going live from your computer, let's say you want to be live streaming, then that can help narrow down. Now, every camera I showed you, you can actually go live with. I don't know if you knew that. Every one of those cameras. You can go live with the GoPro. You can go live with the G7X, the M50. We've already talked about that. You can go live with webcam. You can go live with your phone, your iPhone. By the way, I'm a Mac person, so a lot of things you can do with an iPhone, you can do with an Android. I just think iPhones are better. But you have to ask what you want to use, right? So that goes back to what type of video are you shooting? I think you have to answer that question before you get into what's the best camera. What's your experience level? So here's the thing. These cameras get expensive. My M50 when I bought it was like 600 something. I think now they're under 500 with a lens. The EOS R, which is a great camera, is like 1300, maybe 1400. There's a lot of folks that have the Sony. I can't think of which one it is. It's about 13 or 1400. Do you need to spend that much money on a camera? You know, if you are just starting out, I would say no, because you need to get used to the camera. You need to get used to shooting. And there's other things you might want to get over time, like mics and tripods and stuff like that. Believe it or not, the best part of video is the sound. If people can't hear you, they're probably not going to be interested in what you're talking about. So what's your experience level? Take that into consideration. What is your budget? This is really, really important. Now you may say, why? Well, if you've only got like $500, if you've only got $500, then that's okay. But let's say you've got $100. Let's say you've got 1,000. So you really need to ask what your budget is. Doug Smith saying, thanks so much for the content, Kevin. Even though I don't use the Mac, the questions are universal and gives me great direction. I appreciate that. And if you're finding value in this, let me know in the comments, because this is the stuff I love to cover because it helps me. But I think you need to know what your budget is, because here's the thing. Gear can be expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive. You do not need expensive gear to create content. Say that with me. I do not need expensive gear to create content. You don't. Remember, one of my cameras is an iPhone, and now, of course, here's the irony. There's iPhones now that are more expensive than mirrorless cameras, but it happens. So don't believe you have to spend a lot of money to get a lot of great stuff, but you do need to know what is your budget, because if you don't, you can, it's so easy to go down the gear rabbit hole and just start overspending and stuff like that. And then the last question I really think is important is, what do you have that you could use? What do you have that you could use? So think about that. If you have an iPhone, or as my buddy Doug probably has a Droid, that's okay. You could use that to make video. If all you have, I probably shouldn't even say that. If you have a laptop and that's all you've got, again, watch the video I did this week about, I think it's 7 free apps you have on your computer that you could be making video. Period. Let's say all you've got is a laptop, and you've got and you just right now money's tight, or you don't want to spend it, or you don't know what you need to spend it on. Dude or dudette, use the FaceTime camera and just start producing content. So I think that's something to really consider. So Rocketaz by saying no need to price gear. I use Nikon, older one, and the tripod. Yep. Yeah. And that's a great point. If Taz, you're getting great stuff out of it, there's nothing wrong with it. But again, I think you have to go back to, what do you have that you could be using? Because again, it's very easy to think, I've got to have something better. If I don't have that, I can't create good content. And let me tell you, as a content creator, it's easy to go, I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need this. So here's the answer to the question I told you that I get all the time, that I see all the time. What's the best camera for creating videos? And I'm going to answer it. You ready? It depends. There is no best. Now, I'm sure some of my fellow content creators will say, what the heck? Of course there's a best camera. Now, there are a lot of cameras out there. I know some guys that have big production companies, and they have, a lot of times they use a camera called a Red. I think it's 10,000. It may be more. Heck, when I was in television years ago, and I remember we would get some of our big fancy cameras, they were like $10,000, $20,000. In fact, there was one time where I think it was like a $20,000 camera, and the chief engineer, you had to go to him. Now, keep in mind, that's what my department did. We created videos all the time, but we would have to go to him, check the camera out, go get it, and it was treated like it was like some artifact that we couldn't get dirty. And now, granted, I think you do need to treat your gear nice, and if you don't, you're going to pay the price. But and the reason is because the camera was so expensive. So expensive. Remember earlier I mentioned that there are iPhones that cost more than this M50, and I think the quality of this is phenomenal. Now, a lot plays into it. I've got 2 lights on. I'm using a certain lens which blurs the background. That's not an effect. It's actually blurred. I hate effects that blur backgrounds like that because it never looks real to me. The mic I'm using, $60 mic. I think it sounds phenomenal. So you don't have to spend a lot. But I think it comes down to, and again, I'll put these questions up. I think you have to consider, what type of video are you shooting? What is your experience level? What is your budget? And what do you have right now that you could use? So rather than get caught up on what is the absolute best camera, ask those things. And look at that. Look who's jumping in. Stephanie, good morning. Good morning to you and all of Tulsa. Good to see you. So I think it's easy to get caught up on the best camera. And I think that's what happens a lot of times when I've seen this question pop up in groups. What's the best camera for creating video? And again, I'm not ragging on the people asking those questions. But I think it's an easy trap to fall into, thinking if I just have this one best thing, then that's all I need. Now, I do think there's great gear out there. And please cut me some slack if I do a video going the best software to edit videos with, or the best mics and stuff like that. Because in my opinion, Canon cameras are great. But I think the trap I see people falling into is they're looking for the best thing. And if I have that best thing, I will be better. And I've said this over and over before, and I believe it so much, that gear doesn't make you creative. It can help you share your creativity, but it doesn't make you any more creative. If you've got a Polaroid camera, that may be hard to make video with that, but unless you do the flip thing, sound effects are free in this show. But you can do some amazing things. Look, there's a director named Steven Soderbergh, and he did a movie not too long ago called Unsane. I haven't seen it. It's in my queue. I collect things in my Netflix queue and Amazon Prime queue because I'm going to get to it one day. And he shot it all on an iPhone and I think some iPad too. And he said after that movie, I'm not using big gear anymore. Now, this is a major Hollywood director. In fact, I remember, did you ever watch the show House? Big House fan when it was on Fox. And they did an episode where there was a cave-in or something like that, and they had to get to the lady, so what they did is, now keep in mind, a lot of Hollywood shows are shot on a lot of different things. Arri is a big camera they use. And there's other different cameras too. Now I think that a lot of that is changing, but what's interesting is, and this made big news, is they shot the bulk of that episode on a DSLR. And it was like in the trades, like, oh, the producers of House, they're using a DSLR, because all of a sudden it was a big deal. But it was like, and part of the reason was because of the set they built for this cave-in and the way they wanted to shoot it, and they were like, well, we could just shoot it with this. Do you know, all the years I've produced video, I've never had a client say, well, what camera are you using? What camera are you? Now, can you show me the camera you're going to use? No, typically the client wants to know the cost, the timeline, and more about the story, which they should, that you're going to help them share, right? So rather than ask what's the best camera, I think these are the questions, again, you should be asking. What type of video are you shooting? What is your experience? What is your budget? and what do you have that you could currently use, and then let that guide you. So if you're just getting started in video and you've got an iPhone or one of the other phones, use it. If you've got a webcam, use it. If you want to invest, don't be going after the high price. Look, there's a lot of guys out there that they do some amazing things and they've got these crazy rigs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the belief is that you've got to have a lot of expensive gear to create content. Just ain't the thing. Now, if you're ever interested in what I've got, there'll be links to that in the description. And I showed those earlier in the show, the cameras I use, and I'm more than happy to tell more in depth in maybe other videos. You tell me about why I use this and how I use this and things like that. Some cameras have multiple purposes. But again, my iPhone is a camera. And it can do so much more. I mean, I can go live on this. I can shoot a video on this, landscape, vertical. I can immediately post it on that. I can edit on there. So there's a lot you can do with that. So I hope this helped you in getting past the age-old question of what's the best camera, because the answer is it depends. It really, really depends. So be careful when people say, well, the best camera is a Sony. Oh, well, I got to go buy a Sony. Well, is it? It depends on your experience level and what you have and your cost and basically, what you want to do with it. So I hope that helped you. If it did, let me know in the comments, and let me know any other questions you might have about the cameras you use, or questions about maybe what you might need it for, things like that. On this channel, I love to share information and tips and tools and my experience to help you make video so you can make an impact in the world. I'm Kevin, and I appreciate you being here. Thanks for stopping by.